Dr. Stevenson received the UCLA Academic Senate Distinguished Lecturer Award for non-Senate faculty in 2003. In 2009, he received the American Dental Association's Distinguished Golden Apple Teaching Award in both the pre-doctoral and postdoctoral categories. In 2005, Dr. Stevenson received a fellowship in medical education from the UCLA School of Medicine. He has published over 30 articles on dental materials, the principles of evidence-based dentistry, and restorative techniques in peer-reviewed journals, including Operative Dentistry, Evidence-Based Dentistry, and the Journal of Aesthetics and Restorative Dentistry. In 2015, he started Stevenson Dental Solutions, a teaching institute dedicated to hands-on training, where he serves as the director of education. He lives in La Verne, California, with his wife, Savvy. As his former student, I've added a few personal words. Dr. Stevenson, or as we fondly called him at UCLA, RGS3, is the epitome of excellence in dentistry. To say that he's a perfectionist is an understatement. RGS not only strives for excellence, he's defined it. In order to describe to you the caliber of his educational impact on dental students, I'd like to point out that he's invented an instrument called the RGS, which is like a PerioPro for restorative. So it's quite genius. We use it almost every day in preclinical operative to measure the walls of our craft and clearance from the adjacent tooth. RGS is passionate for teaching and does it with such poise and grace. While we found him intimidating at UCLA, I've never once seen him get frustrated or lose his patience with a student. Watching RGS polish a gold crown to perfection was perhaps one of my most inspiring experiences of dental school. Ladies and gentlemen, we present to you the man, the legend, Dr. Richard Stevenson.
I'm in trouble, deep trouble. You're so sweet for that. Okay, am I live? Bruce, I'm good? Can everyone hear me? You cannot hear me. Okay. What am I doing wrong? Turning it on? Do I need, how about, is that better when I put it up like that? Okay, better? That's not you. Okay. All right, here we go. Awesome. Okay, the gentleman in the table number one have promised me that my chicken dinner will be untouched. And I want to take it to go because it looks really good. But enjoy, and thank you so much for that introduction. I was thinking, you know, when we want to feel appreciated, don't we? And sometimes in dentistry, it doesn't come every day, does it? But we appreciate our staff quite a bit. We give them a lot of props and we help them out, but sometimes we don't get it back. Every once in a while it comes. And that was one of those moments for me. And I really feel touched by that. Thank you very much. I just do what I love. And I think that's pretty much what we all do. Dentistry is the greatest profession in the world. I feel so sorry for my medical colleagues. Some of you probably have spouses that are in the medical field, and we have it so much better. And don't ever forget that. It's really quite wonderful. I'm going to talk a little bit about the connection between restorative and implant. And the reason why I'd like to talk about this is because no one's talking about it. Right? Bruce has given a beautiful study club seminar on sinus lifts, and you're going to get all kinds of training all over the place on placing implants. It's what everyone talks about. It's what everyone's doing. But who's talking about the nuances of the connectivity between the restorative and the implant? Very, very few people. Very few people. I was telling Todd Schoenbaum, one of my friends at UCLA, we need to give a course in this. I think it would be very popular. He says, I agree. So we put a course together and we put it before the CE committee. And unfortunately, it kind of rubbed the PROS department the wrong way. They said, we want to give the course. We said, fine, give it. They didn't. So it just didn't happen. But that inspired Todd to do something. He wrote a book called Implant Prosthodontics. It is a #1 selling textbook in the history of the publisher. You can't even get the darn thing. So it's all about simplistic, beautiful photography describing how we need to deal with this interface. Just read a paper this morning about complications with implants. What is the complication rate in a 10-year period of time with implant prosthodontics? What do you think the complication rate is? Yeah, it's about 35%. So about 1/3 of every implant that we restore, the crowns are going to have some problem. And a lot of those problems after integration are related to problems that we as the restorative dentists have the responsibility to take care of. We are the caregivers. We're the caretakers of that restoration after our wonderful surgeons do such a great job getting us to the integration stage. But now it's our job to take over. So disclosures. I don't take money. I take money from dental societies. That's fine. That helps me get up here and pay for the trip and everything else, but it's not the reason I'm here. I just love to get the word out about interesting topics that sometimes people aren't talking about, and they aren't talking about without having something in their back pocket. And that to me is very unfortunate. I'm old school. I believe you shouldn't get paid by manufacturers for anything. And although it's tempting, I won't take it. You can ask them. 2 or 3 of them over there have supported me over the years, but not with cash. I won't take it. They'll come in and they'll maybe show some things or help educate the course, but it's not about the money. I do have a YouTube channel, and the money we collect for this goes into our charity. We have a nonprofit company that we started, and all the money gets dumped into there. And we're about serving the underserved, providing scholarships for kids that don't know what to do with their lives, that maybe can go to dentistry. And we also are going to set up a series of non-corporate corporate offices across the country that actually give all the money back to the staff. Almost like socialism, true socialism. I mean, it's like a cooperative. So we got big plans, and that's really something I'm really interested in doing. So if you feel inclined to watch a video, I think I make about 0.001 penny for every time you view something. So you could do me a big favor by viewing a few of the videos. Okay, Dr. Tucker and Dr. Warren Johnson are my 2 great mentors in life. Dr. Richard V. Tucker is probably regarded as the finest gold dentist to have ever graced this planet. And I'm grateful to have met him, know him. He actually mentored me quite rigorously for a better part of 22 years. And Warren Johnson was his protege, still is. And then Frank Spear and John Coyce, 2 household names in dentistry that teach incredible courses that are not cheap. Do I need to stand in front of that camera so the people on the web can see me? Yeah. Okay. All right. Hey, you guys are lazy. Get off. You should have come in today. All right. So anyway, we have some topics to cover. We don't have a lot of time. Let's get moving. But I'm an academic guy, so let's start off with a quiz. Okay. Let's test our knowledge. The parts. What do we got here on the left? Tissue level implant. Are you going to give all the right answers? This is going to get really old. Okay. And the right hand side, bone level. Okay. Right. Very good. So tissue level, bone level. Trust me, it's going to get harder. Okay. So there's your tissue level. There's your bone level. Both are wonderful and have great applications, and they should both be in your, I believe, both should be available to you at times. Not as much on the tissue levels as we used to, but definitely available in certain situations. And I'm not here to talk about implant placement and implant planning per se. I'm talking about the connectivity. So what kind of implant design is on the left versus the right? Internal, external. Some people call the one on the right a hex top. It's got that little short, little 0.75 millimeter little wall there. External connection, internal connection. Right. All right. And there's your internal and your external examples. That one on the right doesn't look too good. Okay, this is a little trickier. So we've got this one here with that little lightning bolt on it, and we've got this one here with more of a smooth line. What do we call the one on the left versus the one on the right? Other than the smart ones up here that know, who else? No? Okay. So this is a platform switch, also sometimes called a platform shift. And the one on the right is a matched connection, okay? Matched components, matched connection. Okay, this one, we don't care. These are cover screws, but don't throw these things away, right? Always hang on to stuff. You never know when you might need it, right? But pardon me?
Mark it correctly.
Mark it correctly? Okay, fair enough. Yes, that is so true. And then keep track of it. I've got bins and bins and bins and labeled because I do a lot of implant rescue stuff. Okay, how about these? What are these called in general? What's the general name for these suckers? Healing abutments. Awesome. Good job. And then any specifics about those down there? This is the bonus time. Okay, straight, flared, anatomic, and custom. Okay, you had that, right? Cool. And then all of these have a flare, a width, the cuff height, and all of them have numbering systems, and they're important. But basically, this is more a surgeon's interest. And every surgeon you ever work with, and if you're the surgeon, you have so many of these available to you, don't you? You have tons and tons of stuff. My implant armamentaria in my practice, including the parts and the surgical systems, of which I have about 7, plus I've got the spinner, I'm spinning and the whole thing. I'm looking at a really well-equipped Model X Tesla. At a minimum, I think. Is that pretty close, would you say? You got 150 to 300,000 in parts. Unbelievable. And then you've got this one here, which is out there. Anyone using this? Nobel, you're here. How you doing on the sales on this one? Nobel? Did you leave already? Okay, sorry. Kind of a cool idea. The idea was that you take off, the more you take off and you put back the healing abutment onto the implant, the more problems we see with bone stability. So their idea was maybe we don't have to do that at the time of surgery. They have sort of this tissue level piece that sticks up, and then you never have to take off that fixture from the implant itself. It's kind of this, it's a niche market, and it hasn't really taken off quite the way they thought. All right, what are these? Impression copings, impression posts, very good. And the one on the left? Which one's open, which one's closed? Open, closed, correct? Awesome. Bone level open. Sometimes it's called a pickup impression. You ever hear people talk about it like that? Pickup? Okay, versus a transfer. And this is kind of a unique one because these little suckers, when you take the impression, that little plastic piece ends up going inside of the impression, and it gives you the lab technician a little bit more security to know that they've actually snapped it back into the impression properly, rather than more of a passive slip that has little grooves on the side of the impression coping. These happen to be made by Straumann. Same thing, impression copings. Which one's open tray? Left. And on the right, closed tray. It's a 2-part system, sort of like the snappy system, things like that. Exactly right. Okay, test your comprehension. It's pretty easy. Everything on the top is the same, and everything on the bottom is the same. So everything on the top is what? Open tray. Everything on the bottom? Closed tray. Awesome. Okay, we're good? Lab analog, also known as a what? Implant replica, lab fixture analog. It's not that thingy, right? You know the thing in the cast, the thing you attach it to the thing. It's not that. You're right. It's a lab analog or implant replica or fixture analog. External hex, and this one happens to be a BioHorizons implant analog. So what I do when I get my cases back is I hang on to these. If they're in good shape, I'll recycle them. And I think a lot of people do that. Recycle, sterilize, mark it properly, keep it in a nice bin and keep using it. And I think, and we'll keep going. A few more quiz questions. What are these? They're temporary abutments, exactly. And the one on the, so you got it right. The one on the left is made out of what? Teak. Exactly. The one on the right is titanium. Perfect. Good job. You guys are like, could be on Dental Jeopardy. Okay, so here we go. Implant provisionals. Of course, you know, we have screw retained, we have cement retained, not so good, by the way. And the Essex, we have all kinds of different types of temporaries we can do these days. We can even put little wings on and attach things. We've got a whole bunch of ways to make provisionals. And of course, you always have traditional prosthodontics too. You can utilize dentures, partials, things of that nature. And this one, I just didn't bother quizzing you on it because everyone knows that's a scan body. All right. What are these? Right, those are stock abutments. And you notice stock abutments don't have the same shape as a custom abutment by any means. They're quite different. Solid, standard, angled. And the ones on the left, you kind of have to use these a lot when you're going to do a cement retained on a tissue level implant. The ones in the middle and the ones on the right, I have these in my office, not because I use them with final prosthesis, but I use them if I need to make a provisional. They're great to have around. So if someone says, hey, I'm going to donate a bunch of stock abutments to you, I don't say, I don't use them. I'm going to say, thank you. I'm grabbing those puppies because I will find a way to utilize them. So this is castable, and this one over here is modified with ceramic. But what one is this called? Come on, everybody. Give me the 8 clap. Right. That's our UCLA abutment. The most expensive abutment ever made in the history of abutments. You know that, right? Yeah. That little sucker on the left there is about $350. Yeah, and then the amount you have to pay to get the PFM on it, holy moly. Okay, so expensive. And you can do some really cool things with UCLA abutments. We've learned how to kind of tackle all different types of challenging situations with them. Custom abutments start like this on the left. Let me see if my little pointer works. It doesn't really work. That's okay. I'm fine without it. Okay, but on the far left, it starts with a little blank like that, the CAD design, the milling, and you get something like this, custom milled abutment. And we're going to talk more about those a little bit later. Okay, what are these? Right, these are ceramic abutments. God, you got it perfect. All right, so what's on the left versus the ones on the right? You have a stock and a custom, right? And then you have a stock and a custom. But the ones on the left are all made out of ceramic. In this case, these are full zirconia versus zirconia that's been glued by the lab, by the way, right? They glue it together onto the tie base. Do we have any labs still in the room? Did you all leave? Okay. What do you glue this together with?
It depends. If it's EMAX, we use or we bond it.
Uh-huh.
If it's zirconia, we use Panavia.
You use Panavia V5? Yeah, do you sandblast it?
If it's a couple of buttons, we don't. If it's the stock, there's 2 different bolts.
Mm-hmm.
One that don't sandblast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm talking about sandblasting the zirconia.
Oh, actually,
Okay. And then are you using a primer or are you just going right to Panavia? Okay. And where do you get your cement?
it's Panavia.
No, where do you get it? Do you have an account with a dental supply house and you order it?
Yes, yes.
Okay. 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 Yeah.
And we get it from Ferrari.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we get that from non-dental.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Excellent. And similar answer?
Yeah, I just make custom, not so similar.
Okay. All right. So you go custom all the way up. All right. So the point of me asking that question was there are a lot of labs that don't know how to handle the protocol of cementing those together. So it's really important for you to make sure your lab knows how to do it. And I offer to buy the cement for my lab and train the technicians how to do it properly and how to handle it. Because sometimes labs, you know what labs are like. Sometimes they're a little dusty and things are kind of all over and The lab techs have got their iPhones out, they're watching movies with the earplugs in, and there's a lot of noise and a lot of things are happening. And you need to have kind of a clean room area, and I'm sure the gentleman in the back does, to make sure that these parts get put together properly. Okay. And that's what we're talking about here is these tie base where we actually have to cement that together. So the lab technician is doing that for you. And there's no magic. They're using the same stuff you would use when you're delivering a zirconia bonded restoration. Not so many of these are around, right? Chairside, CAD CAM, milled abutments. I've never made one. I've had a CEREC. I've been had a CEREC machine in my office for years and years. I've been doing CEREC since 1987, but I've never actually felt comfortable going this direction because of strength issues. Okay, what kind of abutments are those right there? Locators, exactly, locators. And then here, what do we call these? Multi-units, exactly. Amazing. I think this group is doesn't need me to lecture. I'm going to wrap it up right here. Okay, so we have screws, and all of those on the top is really that. For me, the important part is you need to get the right thing on the top for the right thing on the bottom. That's important, isn't it? And it seems to be a source of significant concern. And we get confused because everything is so darn small, particularly those two on the right. I mean, it's just downright mean that they have these two that are 0.02 of an inch apart in size. 0.048, 0.048, 0.050. I'm like, really, guys, 50 microns? Can you maybe come up with some standards here for us? Nope, no luck. And then, of course, you've got the Nobel, Unigrep, and then you got your Torx, your SCS Straumann Torx driver there. So I have all these drivers available. You got to have them because I do a lot of rescuing, which means that I find out ways to take the screws out, even if they're fractured and they're stuck. So I work with a group that actually makes tools to remove the screws and not the manufacturer's tools. I'm talking about drilling a hole through the screw and then reverse threading it back out with a microscope. And I charge by the hour. And that's how, and it's fun. So I'm part of a study group that does that. But I have all of these drivers available, and most labs have them all too. And I have the latch and the ratchet type. I got the whole thing. And when I don't know what something is, I tell my assistant, Millie, get out the super kit. So she hands me the super kit and open it up, and it's just like every ratchet and driver you can imagine ever made is in that hole. And then we sometimes have to figure out which one it is. Okay, and then torque wrenches, you have different types out there. The surgeons are well-versed in using torque wrenches, but sometimes we as clinicians aren't as knowledgeable about how to use them properly. When I hand a new implant placing person, a new person to restore an implant, and I give them this driver, they don't know where to hold it. Now, I mean, don't feel bad if that's you. It's okay, just own it and figure out how to fix that. But they start pushing here rather than here. So this spring type, you want to pull on that little ball and pull that, and then you can cinch it down. And all my assistants, I test them like you're taking apart a firearm. You know, those shows, they put all the parts like that. Well, I have them take that entire thing apart. It's got 4 pieces, and I want them to put it back together for me properly. And it's amazing how many times they won't get that outer sheath on all the way. Because if you don't get the outer sheath on all the way, it won't work. And it's like, nothing's happening. What's wrong with this thing? It just spins around because it doesn't have the little engaging fork coming through that little hole right there. But I like to have a whole assembly of these. And so I have kits. Oops, I keep doing that. We have kits like this. This one on the right, I like this little one. It's made by Salvin, and it comes with all the options for you. So if you want to have like a starter kit, Salvin's a pretty awesome company. You know, they really cater to the surgeons of the United States, and they do a good job. And they are very knowledgeable. I like that one on the far right. I would caution you against going on eBay and getting a cheapy version. I did it just to find out how bad they were. They're bad. They're bad. So reverse engineering on these things isn't working. I wouldn't trust it on any patient, no way. So get your FDA approved, properly made torque wrench or torque limiter from those companies. Of course, we have cement, lingual screw, and screw retain. And it's interesting pendulum, hasn't it? We've really swung back to screw retain now, haven't we? So I remember at first, it was always screw retain, and then we kind of started to see the cement retains coming in, and then all the papers came out, and all the fear about cement being left behind came and pretty much wiped out the cement craze. So a lot of docs have just shied away from cement. They do everything screw retained. But as a surgeon, you know this, Bruce, when you're placing an implant for somebody that wants a screw retained restoration, you better dial that sucker in just right. There is very little play there for you as a surgeon because you've got to make sure that screw access hole is through the appropriate part of that crown. So if you think it doesn't matter, it matters. So while you're working with your surgeons, my recommendation is you need to tell them, I am planning on a screw retain on this tooth, or I have already made the decision that this is going to be a cement retain. I'm using a custom abutment. And then the surgeon goes, aha, I can have a little bit more flexibility, particularly at that last little angle you have to do to get it just where you want it to grab onto the bone you want, et cetera, et cetera. So fixed unit on the left, this is done probably about 30 years ago at UCLA, looking pretty good. And then on the right-hand side, screw access holes coming through, not always in the best place, right? So you can see that the screw access holes are coming out here through kind of the middle of the functional cusps. Not my favorite, right? But sometimes we're stuck in that situation. Okay. And then restoration types all in 4. And then, of course, you've got your bar over dentures. You've got your implant assisted partial dentures. By the way, highly underutilized, wonderful option for patients that need an entry point into your practice. I highly recommend considering taking a partial denture and stabilizing it. In other words, turning a distal extension into a kind of like a tooth-borne. Okay. And on the right, of course, the hybrid dentures, the big expense dentures. You're going all in on those. And you have a lab technician that comes to your office and works with you, and you're all in on those puppies, right? And then at UCLA, we would do these too. Incredible, incredible service to patients that had trauma or cancer. Amazing that we are able to do such beautiful things for them. My maxillofacial pros friends that do this all the time are some of the most giving, kind people you'll ever know. First of all, they're incredibly smart. They're already prosthodontists. They went to another program to become maxillofacial, and they truly have to bond with all these patients. And most of the patients are cancer patients. And they know that they're just extending the quality of life, not their life. The quality of life. And so they're beautiful people. It's kind of cool to hang out with these guys. All right. So let's talk now. That was their sort of the intro. Let's get into the nitty gritty so we know all that we're talking about here. And let's remember that teeth and implants are not the same. And I think that we need to be really careful about what's the messaging that's going out to patients is potentially harmful to us as a profession. You know, there's a commercial on the radio down in Southern California. Teeth in a day, yeah, yeah, yeah. You get that one too? Oh, just like your real teeth, you're gonna look beautiful. You'll walk out. And it's like, oh my gosh, these are the patients that have the worst hygiene, the worst mouths ever. And now they're gonna have things that are just like, quote, just like your real teeth. Only better now, they're saying. Stronger and better than your real teeth. It's amazing. So it's important for us to probably take a little bit of a different approach with patients. I usually tell patients this, and I don't know who told me this a long time ago, but it makes sense. Implants are not teeth replacements. They're replacements for not having teeth. You see the subtle difference there? It's important. They're replacements for not having teeth. They're not teeth replacements. Important for us to remember that. And when you look at the fibers, they're very, very different. Only circular fibers. They're very vulnerable to trauma. Recession is possible, you know, and it's only that little O-ring that goes around the implant that protects that. So it's that little O-ring that we see that goes around that interface between the implant and the restoration that is actually protecting it. And if you look at the hex top or matched platform style, there really was no opportunity for this O-ring to stop. It would continue to migrate down more into the bone. And that's one of the reasons why we like to look at platform switching. So we started off with the ones on the left, and that's where I started my implant life, right there on the left. I got to see Dr. Brandemark lecture in 1982 as a first-year dental student. And I thought to myself, man, this is gonna change our profession. And I hadn't even given an injection yet. I was a newbie. But that lecture really inspired me, and it inspired UCLA too. UCLA just took off and became kind of a mecca for implant dentistry. And then, of course, you have these trilobes. Anybody still using these? Yeah, right? Okay, we have Nobel in the room, so I'm not going to say anything, but dang, Nobel, what the heck was with that one? And then on the right, we have the internal connection like on a Straumann, and Nobel makes, everybody's making internals now that are truly internal.